What happens when the truth comes out, but the damage is already done? On Monday, April 20th, the Bold and the Beautiful dives into the explosive fallout from Ivy's betrayal. Now that Electra knows the truth, this is no longer just about secrets being exposed. It is about broken trust, dangerous choices, and a love triangle that could spiral even further. For a while, Ivy managed to stay in control of the narrative. She pulled strings, she hid motives, she made moves behind the scenes to keep Electra and Will apart. And as long as the full truth stayed buried, Ivy still had room to defend herself, manipulate the situation, or at least pretend that her intentions were more complicated than they really were. But Monday's episode changes that. Once the truth about the letter and Ivy's entire scheme is fully exposed, her position may collapse almost instantly. And that is what makes this storyline so interesting. The shock is not just that Ivy gets caught. The shock is that once she is caught, there may be no graceful way out. Electra is not likely to see this as a misunderstanding. She may see it as a direct betrayal from someone she trusted. That kind of emotional wound does not heal with one apology. It changes the way a person sees you. It changes every past conversation, every suspicious moment, every so-called act of concern. Suddenly, it all looks different. That is why Ivy's downfall could feel brutal. Because in soap stories like this, exposure is rarely the end of the punishment. Exposure is usually the moment the punishment begins. Ivy may lose Electra completely. She may lose credibility. And perhaps worst of all, she may be forced to stand there and watch other people move forward while she is left alone with the consequences of what she created. And yet, even that may not be the most dramatic part. Because once one manipulator falls, the emotional mess she leaves behind usually becomes everyone else's problem. Now let's talk about Will and Electra, because this is where the emotional tension gets much more layered. Yes, Will wants her back. That much is clear. He wants another chance. He wants to rebuild. He wants to believe that once Ivy's lies are exposed, the road back to Electra will finally open. On the surface, that sounds romantic. It sounds like justice. The truth came out, the villain was exposed, and now the couple can find their way back together. But the Bold and the Beautiful almost never makes things that simple. Because even if Will gets the opening he has been hoping for, Electra is no longer standing in the same emotional place she was before. She has been hurt, she has been confused, and while Melissa Dillon may be out of the beach house, that does not automatically mean Electra's heart is suddenly free and clear. In fact, her heart may be more divided now than ever. That is what makes a possible reunion feel so fragile. Will may think the truth fixes everything. But for Electra, the truth may only create a new kind of pressure. She may want to believe in Will again, yet still feel that too much happened in the meantime. Too many emotions shifted, too many lines blurred, too many new connections formed while the old relationship was breaking apart. So if Will and Electra do move toward each other on Monday, it may not feel triumphant. It may feel uncertain, hesitant, emotional, almost like two people trying to rebuild a bridge while the ground underneath them is still unstable. And that kind of reunion can be even more gripping than an easy one. Because the closer they get, the more nervous viewers become about what could tear them apart all over again. Here is where the story becomes even more complicated. Electra still has not told Will that she has started something new with R.J. Forrester. That detail matters a lot, because if Will is moving toward Electra believing he finally has a real shot, then the truth about R.J. could hit like a second betrayal, even if Electra never meant it that way. From her perspective, this may simply be a sign of how much her life changed while Will was losing her. From Will's perspective, it may feel like the ground disappears beneath him just as he thought he was regaining balance. And that creates a fascinating emotional conflict. Electra is not necessarily being malicious. She may simply be conflicted. She may genuinely care about Will and still feel something real pulling her toward RJ. That is what gives this story weight. She is not just choosing between two men. She may be choosing between two versions of herself. The version tied to her past with Will, and the version that emerged after everything started falling apart. RJ, meanwhile, is not just a distraction in this story. He is becoming a real factor. A real threat to Will. A real complication to any romantic repair. And the longer Electra keeps this quiet, the more explosive the reveal may become. Because secrets do not lose power when the first scandal ends. On soaps, they usually wait for the perfect moment to strike next. So even if Monday begins with Ivy's exposure, it may end with the audience asking a very different question. Is Electra about to break Will's heart without even meaning to? Daphne Rose Walton is expected to feel relieved once Ivy's house of cards comes crashing down. From her perspective, that makes sense. She may believe that now, finally, Electra and Will can make decisions based on truth instead of manipulation. She may feel that the worst is over. That the poison has been removed from the situation. That the young couple can reclaim control over their lives and choose their future without interference. But that may be a very risky assumption. Because truth does not automatically create peace. Sometimes truth creates chaos. Sometimes it frees people, yes, but it also forces them to face everything they were avoiding before. That could be exactly what happens here. Daphne may think Ivy's collapse clears the path. Instead, it may only reveal how messy that path really is. Electra still has unresolved feelings. Will still carries hurt and jealousy. RJ is still in the picture. And Melissa may be out physically, but emotional residue does not pack up and leave so easily. That means Daphne's relief could prove short-lived. In fact, Monday may mark the exact point where the story stops being about deception and starts becoming about desire, rivalry, and emotional consequences nobody can control. And that shift is often where the strongest drama begins. If there is one thing viewers should be watching closely, it is the rising hatred between Will and RJ. This is not mild jealousy. This is not a passing romantic rivalry. This is personal now. Both men have strong feelings for Electra, and that alone is enough to keep the tension burning. But what makes this more volatile is that neither one seems willing to step back gracefully. Neither one wants to surrender the emotional ground. And once pride enters the picture, things can spiral very fast. That is why the next phase of this story could get much uglier. Will may see RJ as the person who moved in when he was vulnerable. RJ may see Will as someone trying to reclaim a relationship he already lost. Both perspectives carry emotional logic. Both can fuel resentment, and Electra, caught between them, may begin to realize that choosing one man could mean creating an all-out enemy in the other. That puts enormous pressure on every scene moving forward. Because this is no longer just about who Electra loves more. It is about who can handle rejection. Who can control anger. Who turns heartbreak into obsession. And on a show like The Bold and the Beautiful, that kind of triangle rarely stays emotional for long. It usually becomes strategic, bitter, competitive, sometimes even destructive. So while Monday's episode may begin with Ivy paying the price for manipulation, the bigger setup may be what comes next. A war between Will and RJ that Electra may not be able to stop. And once that war truly begins, everybody around them could get pulled into the fallout. So Monday, April 20th may end up being far more than just an episode about Ivy getting exposed. Yes, the truth is finally coming out, and yes, Ivy may have to face the consequences of everything she did to keep Electra and Will apart. But in true Bold and the Beautiful fashion, the exposure of one secret rarely brings peace. More often, it opens the door to an even bigger emotional mess. Because now the damage is no longer hidden. Electra has to face the reality that someone she trusted may have manipulated her life in a very personal way. Will may feel hopeful that this is his chance to win her back, but hope and healing are not always the same thing. And RJ's growing place in Electra's heart could make this situation even more complicated than anyone expected. That is what makes this storyline so intriguing right now. The truth may free Electra from Ivy's deception, but it does not free her from confusion. If anything, it may force her into an even more painful decision. Does she go back to the love she once believed in with Will? Or has too much changed for that to ever feel simple again? And if RJ is no longer just a rebound or a distraction, then this could be the beginning of a much bigger romantic conflict. At the same time, the tension between Will and RJ feels like it is only getting started. Neither one is likely to back down easily, especially when Electra is at the center of it all. So even if Ivy's downfall brings one chapter to an end, it may be setting up a much more explosive chapter next, one filled with jealousy, rivalry, and emotional fallout that could spread far beyond this triangle. So what do you think is coming next? Will Electra find her way back to Will, or is RJ becoming the man she cannot walk away from? And after Ivy's scheme is fully exposed, will things finally calm down, or is the real storm only beginning? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe for more the bold and the beautiful spoilers, updates, and deep drama analysis. Because in this story, the truth may finally be out, but the consequences are only just starting.